Hello everyone, and welcome to our lecture series for Chapter 19 in your textbook, Give Me Liberty by Dr. Eric Foner. This chapter is entitled Safe for Democracy, the United States in World War I, 1916 to 1920. The first section is entitled The Era of Intervention. The focus question for this section is, in what ways did the progressive presidents promote the expansion of American power overseas? If you recall from our previous lecture series, much of the justification for American imperialism at the turn of the 20th century was to secure American economic interests around the globe and to expand new territories for American business. And in the early 20th century, American presidents, beginning with Theodore Roosevelt, latched on to this idea with full force and began to project American power at unprecedented levels outside of the country's borders. Between 1900 and 1920, the U.S. sent the military into Caribbean countries up to 20 times, all in the efforts to secure U.S. economic interests. Theodore Roosevelt was more active in international diplomacy than any of his predecessors and sent multiple interventions into Central America. And those interventions, like the interventions in the Caribbean, were all about establishing stable political situations that would provide a foundation for the security of American economic and business interests. The most significant of Roosevelt's interventions in Central America during his presidency was his intervention in Panama beginning in 1903. Now, there had long been ideas thrown around about establishing a canal through the very narrow isthmus of Panama that would greatly speed up the rate of shipping between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. Prior to the establishment of the Panama Canal, ships had to go all the way around the bottom of South America to get to the Pacific Ocean and on to Asia from the Atlantic. A very time-consuming and costly journey. The establishment of a canal through Panama, again, would greatly speed up that process and, of course, lower the cost. And this was very important, particularly for American business interests in the era. Now, Panama, prior to this period, was actually a territory of the nation of Colombia. And Roosevelt at first tried to negotiate a treaty with Colombia that would grant the Panamanian region to the Americans for the purpose of establishing a canal. Colombia refused to negotiate with Roosevelt. So Roosevelt initiated an independence movement in Panama and applied U.S. military support to that independence movement, which this independence movement was ultimately successful. And of course, once Panamanian independence from Colombia was secured, the United States was given the right to construct and control the Panamanian Canal. The canal was completed in 1914, and actually the United States did not cede full control of the Panama Canal to Panama until the year 2000. Going all the way back to the year 1823 and the establishment of what was known as the Monroe Doctrine, which basically stated that the Western Hemisphere was the particular sphere of influence of the United States, and it was aimed particularly at preventing European intervention anywhere in the Western Hemisphere. Now, Theodore Roosevelt added what was known as the Roosevelt Corollary to the Monroe Doctrine, which basically stated that not only did the United States have the right to prevent any European intervention into the Western Hemisphere, but also the United States had the particular right to exercise an international police power in the Western Hemisphere, particularly with the aims of establishing and securing stable political situations in various countries of the Western Hemisphere, which would promote secure and stable economic trade in the region for American businesses. Now, when President Taft came into power, he did scale back to a considerable degree the rate of American military intervention in the Western Hemisphere, but he scaled up to an unprecedented degree a new emphasis on economic investment and loans from American banks in the region, which would more intimately tie the economies of these Western Hemispheric countries in with the economy of the United States. And this particular style came to be known as dollar diplomacy, and it was a policy that would be repeated by future presidents throughout the 20th century. When Woodrow Wilson came into power, he brought with him a new sort of missionary zeal and this sense of the righteousness of American capitalism and democratic institutions. And he began a new policy that historians have later termed moral imperialism, which held that the export of manufactured goods and investments went hand in hand with the spread of democratic ideals across the globe. And for Wilson's part, he once again increased the rate of military interventions in the Western Hemisphere, particularly Latin America, than ever before or since. And this included intervention in the Mexican Revolution in the 19-teens, when the U.S. sent troops into Mexico over a coup d'etat attempt in a disputed election. And that concludes part 1 of our Chapter 19 lecture series. As always, study hard, and I'll see you soon.